Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. How are you, folks? Mike Carlucci here. Time for another event, another big guest speaker coming in to the Mike Carlucci office and for the sports class, the sports broadcasting classes that I put together. And we have a special guy here. This guy is, you talk about super talent. You talk about from point A to point B. This is the guy. He has a lot of experience and he had just moved into a really cool job here just recently as well over the last year or so. Without further ado, here he is, good guy, Mike Benton. Hi, Mike.
You couldn't have built that any better. I feel like I owe you something at the end of this podcast here, Mike. I'm good. How are you, buddy?
I'll send you an invoice for $25 minimum. There you go. So I'm doing great, Mike. It's so good to see. I know you're super busy. You got the season happening. I'll let you tell everybody what you're doing first, but I know you're busy, so I appreciate the time. So we'll go smooth and we'll transition this thing as quick as possible because I know you got a lot of prep for your game and all that. So I'm just going to jump right into it, Mike. Good to see you, by the way, and I see a lot of cool things you post on Facebook about your family. You got a lot of good stuff going on, man. I'm really proud of you, and I love you like a son. I love you like a brother. So there you go. Anyway, I do want to say, how did you when did you get the bug to get into broadcasting?
I think it was around the same time I was going to Dodger games and actually hearing your voice,
Oh,
press speakers from center field. I kid you not. The way that you bellowed Brett Butler, Mike Piazza, Eric Karros, it is permanently burned in my brain about professionalism. But aside from that as well, it was having the privilege to grow up there and listen to Vin Scully, listen to Bob Miller, the actual two I've had the extreme privilege to at one point meet, and I'm forever grateful for that, especially for Vin because his time unfortunately has passed, as we all know. But then also listening to Chick Hearn on top of that, and I've dabbled a bit in basketball. I know we're here for different sports and whatnot, but you know like a lot of people who came out of the Los Angeles area with a thirst for this business, a lot of us have one thing in common, and it was getting a chance to listen and watch Vin, to listen to and watch Bob, to listen to and watch Chick Hearn. Even you want to throw Ralph Lawler in there, and some
yes.
announcers that the Angels have had over and over, but Los Angeles was on just a different level with their talent in the booth, not just for broadcasters, but also for human beings. And so, being that I couldn't, hit any more than, basically, I think 150 in a little league season. I got into hockey way too late to make something out of it, to play and pursue a career. Golf was fine, got my varsity letter, but that was pretty much it. And so I thought, if I couldn't play a good game, I could try to talk a good game. And so I think by the time I had entered college, I was at a crossroads thinking, do I want to go the broadcasting thing or maybe even pursue being like a PGA teaching pro? But the thought of going to a golf course and sitting at a desk for about 9, 10, 11, 12 hours a day just did not appeal enough to me. And it was broadcasting. That's what I wanted to do. And so by that time, I knew it was what I wanted to do. And, I was fortunate to have a lot of good people around me to make this all happen and help me understand that this wasn't going to happen overnight. It was going to happen just by building up and up 0.01% each and every day. And it could take you 15 years, but if you stick it out, eventually you're going to get there.
Yeah, patience, timing is the key, as you know. I mean, it's with the opening, so to speak. You try to move in the right direction, and sometimes it happens. Sometimes the door will close, but then you just wait for it to open up again. So some good points. Before we get further into it, you mentioned golf, so you are a golf kind of guy. You do have a what's your handicap?
Yeah, I'm actually wearing like my trusty golf jacket I just
Oh,
got here, and from about a few days out, hey, if you live in Seattle, it's going to get a bit moist outside, so you better plan accordingly here for this. And so it's suited me well. I'm at about like a 10, 11 these days. I've had the fortune of coming close to breaking par on a couple of occasions. And funny enough, like when I quit playing college golf, I was over at Citrus College out in Glendora. Went there for 1 year when I was kind of at a crossroads of what's my major, what I want to pursue. And so I went the cost efficient route, if you will, for my education for 1 year. But I gave, after playing golf in high school, my shot. I gave college golf a shot. And, I just think, when you hit an athletic ceiling and you realize that you're really giving it all you have, but there are about 7, 8 guys who are just 20 times better than you. Yeah, it's time to start reevaluating some decisions here for your future. So it's funny because I had a conversation with my golf coach, and I said, I don't know if this is going to happen here, and I want you to make your decision easier because I have this waiting in the hopper, and this is what I want to try. He was more than understanding, and I felt like it was kind of like a big weight off my shoulders. I went out the very next, I would say, weekend, and I shot the best round of my life. Funny enough, competitive golf out the window, but all the pressure was off, and I shot the best round of my life. So, golf is a part of me as well too. And I've had some conversations with people of, can this be a fun side gig? We'll see what happens here down the road. But I think the one thing, even though I don't play golf competitively anymore, is I think golf teaches you a lot about patience. It teaches you a lot about embracing the spirit of imperfection, whether it might be one swing, whether it might be one lie, whether it might be the weather for one day, and finding a way to stick it out. Because it's funny how golf works. We could hit about 10, 15, 20 bad shots in a row, but it's that one you hit right on the sweet spot that's going to get you hooked and suck you right back in. Golf is all about to me. And, fortunately, there are a lot of friends I have in this line of work and locally here who are into golf. So it really is a great social sport to make connections with people and play 18 holes, 4 hours, have a great time. And, some of my greatest memories have actually come away from hockey, have come on the golf course. And so I'm really, really grateful for that.
You mentioned golf giving you patience because it really is a fight to be patient because there's times we just want to grab that driver and throw it into the water. Believe me, I've had many of those days. But it's funny because you said it makes you actually can play your best golf and you're not pressured. There's no stress. You just kind of have fun with it with the guys. Just kick back, enjoy, have a few laughs, a good laugh or two, if you will, and you play some of your best golf because you're relaxed and you don't take it so serious. It's the seriousness that kind of can really tear at you. So I'll tell you what, let's move right into your career ladder. Yeah, what was your first gig before you got into the hockey play-by-play thing?
So I want to say it was back when I was a sophomore in college. I was going to Vanguard University for just 1 year, made one more transfer, and found where I wanted to go, my calling, degree, college radio, and all of that. But when I realized I wanted to do this here for a living, we didn't have YouTube back then. We didn't have, I think we had the internet, but it was still very much a brand new world, the Wild West, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so really, if you wanted to start on the ground floor, and I mean the ground floor, your best bet was either to grab the nearest tape recorder or voice recorder and go to any kind of sporting event. I don't care, pro, minor league, what have you, and record yourself doing play-by-play. And I've had friends who've done this, and I did it too. It worked for me. But also, you had to reach out to your local, option B was reach out to your local cable access station, make a relationship with the person running that place, and give them your life story and tell them why you want to do this for a living and how you can help them. So through a friend I had in high school, we actually teamed together to do, I want to say, about probably 5 or 6 high school football games that year on local access TV. I know some involved, I want to say Diamond Bar High, some involved other schools around the San Gabriel Valley. I know at one point my alma mater, Glendora High, was also involved in one of those games. Matter of fact, the homecoming game, which if you want to blow some friends' minds away, 2 years after graduating high school, you come back to the homecoming game wearing a shirt, tie, sport coat, and a microphone as well. That'll blow some people's minds away that you just went to school about probably 2 years prior to that. But that's kind of beside the point.
Yeah.
So I want to say we did about probably 6 games that year. I'm glad those tapes don't exist. I'm glad they likely have been lost, buried, or burned, because they either will provide, I think, the world's greatest cringe comic relief, or I'll tell you this, they might serve as a pretty good drink coaster as well, because the only thing I got out of those games was, hey, you got to start on the ground floor somewhere, build experience. And I learned later from, I want to say it was the great Nick Nixon, who calls Kings games. He gave me a little piece of advice at a Kings game that year, and he said, patience means your first broadcast, you give yourself so much forgiveness. Your fifth, better than your first. Your 10th will be better than your 5th. Your 50th better than your 10th. Your 100th better than your 50th, and so forth and so on. And that really rings true. I mean, I would think that my stuff is better now than what it was, about 5-6 years ago. And that's not to brag or anything, but it more is a testimony of the more and more reps that you do, the more comfortable you are, and the more polished that you begin to feel, and the better work that you can produce. It's like any other walk of life. The more and more that you practice at it, the more and more that we find that you become in building your skills. So that was a good lesson for me that year, in just being patient with myself, getting past the whole cringe of how I sound, but then, find people to have them listen to your work, seek feedback, and move on from there.
Yeah, you said, got to do reps. You got to keep doing it and doing it. It's like batting practice. You got to get in the cage, swing for the fence, develop your swing, get those bugs out, and that's what moving up the ladder, working like I said, doing the high school games, went into small college, and then you got into your hockey. So let's talk about your first minor league hockey gig. How did you get it? How did the process go?
Well, it was kind of a two-part thing, because my first ever job was with that white, black, and gold jersey you see behind me, the Stockton Thunder. I got that job back in 2005, but only because, well, besides 3 folks who called my future boss to recommend me, and I'm forever grateful to them, was also a year before that, during the NHL lockout. I was still living in the Los Angeles area. I had graduated college, and I knew I wanted to give hockey a run, but I had to start somewhere. So the Long Beach Ice Dogs, who have, rest in peace, have moved on. It's been quite a while, matter of fact.
Oh, yeah.
We're still competing in the ECHL back then. And I made some relationships with some folks in the front office. Justin Kemp was more than gracious with giving me press box space to practice my play-by-play. But then I then built a good relationship with their radio broadcaster. And what he did, and this is back when it wasn't even on radio, like he actually was a pioneer and actually streamed these games on the internet only. And this is back when, if you're thinking you're just streaming, are you really trying your hardest? Well, I mean, radio is only for the big major league teams, or the minor league teams that, went about their business like they were a major league team. So, I mean, you had to find a way to get yourself on the air. That was a great way to do it. And that gave me reps. He gave me first and third period color analyst duties, and he would turn it over to me actually for the second period for play-by-play. A few games I did, that was enough for reps to build up a good play-by-play base on my demo, and then send that into Stockton when I found out that they were getting a team. And I want to say it was back in summer of 2005. I was the number 2 announcer for the Dayton Dragons in minor league baseball. I also went for it, moved out of California, got my feet wet in baseball. Then I heard this thing with Stockton was happening, and I thought, oh, this is it right here. I mean, now I've got family in the Bay Area. My parents still live in the same house in Los Angeles. It's only about a 5-hour drive away. Let's go for it here. And then the day I got that phone call from my future boss, you had to scrape me off the ceiling in the press at Fifth Third Field in Dayton, Ohio. I think my number 1 broadcaster and my boss came in saying, "Are you okay?" And I go, "Oh, I got news for you here." So it's a moment I'll never, ever forget, because it's the first job. It's the first full-time job. And that was the job that helped get me off and running, taught me great life lessons. I made some great friends I still keep in touch with as well. And even though the actual team is no more, it's one of the highlights of not just my career, but my life as well.
That's so cool. So let's move from Stockton. What was the next stop?
So that jersey you see there, that's the black one, and what they call the Glacier Blue, that was the Alaska Aces, and that was a move I made, not because it was going up a league. Matter of fact, they were in the same league, so it was a lateral move, and it wasn't an easy move here. But the matter of fact with Alaska was that they had produced two broadcasters in the NHL who skipped over the American Hockey League, kind of like the AAA of the NHL, and gone right into NHL positions. That'd be Jack Michaels and Josh Bogorod. I remember when Jack got his job with the Edmonton Oilers, and I had a friend in the league saying, "Hey, you want to go for it here?" And I go, "It's a lateral move. Why would I want to do that here?" And then come to think of it, I had second thoughts a few years later when Josh Bogorod, a good friend of mine, matter of fact, Los Angeles native, took a job with the Dallas Stars doing the same thing I'm doing now. And then I began to think, okay, two is a trend here. This is going somewhere. But it wasn't going to be an easy move for me. Stockton was so good to me. I met my wife, Amy, there. It was we had our first place as a married couple in that area. It was still great as far as family, and going to Alaska. And, I had some family, but not as much. And aunt and uncle, and they have since moved as well. And essentially, we're going to like a brand new place, a brand new frontier into Anchorage. So, but it was that opportunity to take that job with Alaska because they broadcasted every game on TV up there. And then in the playoffs, they then moved their games from a local cable package, and it was very professionally produced, very polished. They moved it to a CBS affiliate. Those were incredible reps I got that you really couldn't match elsewhere, almost elsewhere in the minor leagues. Not to mention, that was my first taste of calling a championship. The Aces won the Kelly Cup back in 2013-14. I recall it vividly. Won it in Cincinnati at US Bank Arena, and it was right next door to Great American Ballpark where the Reds were playing. Guess who? My hometown MLB team, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Clayton Kershaw was pitching that night as well. So it was a fun full circle for me, all in one night, June 9th of 2014. But it was, I took on new duties with a team like that. And this is, again, I think a great taste for those who want to do this and understanding of what you have to do when you move up the minor leagues if you take a job there. You're not just broadcasting. You're doing 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 jobs in one. It's just the nature of the beast. And I remember I was serving in broadcasting. I worked as a PR guy. I worked as the social media guy. I worked as a corporate sales guy. Great extra money in the pocket, by the way. And I also worked as a team travel guy. To work as a team travel guy, you've got to have a lot of patience. You got to have your head on a swivel, and you have to be good at math, especially because they're asking you, the owners are asking you to be the ones to hand out per diem to the entire team. And if you mess up and you give someone way too much money, to which this is why I married my wife. She's a math whiz, not me. You could be subject to a league violation here for a salary cap violation. So I was very, very careful in how this was all divvied up. And not only that, but we also flew out for every game because Anchorage in that league in the ECHL was virtually on an island. Our closest team was the Idaho Steelheads. So we're taking, 5-6 hour plane rides routinely to wherever we're playing. And which means You take that money from the bank, you keep it in that zip pouch you get, and you keep it in your bag under lock and key, and do not lose that, because I didn't fear just for my career, but I feared for my life as well if I lost that money. It thankfully did not happen. But for 2 years I worked there, it was a great lesson with the essentially trying to expand my horizons.
That's a cool story, man. I didn't realize that penalty. I mean, the penalty of paying one of the players going over the cap. I mean, who? Because you always think of the cap being in major league level, not minors. You figure, a little here, a little extra there, and then you make up for it, give it to somebody else. But man, that's something cool. I didn't know that. That's really cool. I want to get back to the Anchorage team, but I know you're a Dodger fan, but I'll go ahead and switch because I know we agree on this team. So the 49ers, here we go. I'm hoping for good things. I'm hoping we're staying healthy, but that's for another conversation. So going back to the Anchorage Aces, because I know I used to work for the San Diego Gulls, and they had such a big. The fans were just wild. I mean, they had such a big following, and I know the Anchorage Aces because that's pretty much that. I mean, there's not too many things to do besides if hunting and fishing and outdoor sports, but the hockey team must have really had a nice following in that the very cold frigidness of Anchorage. Tell us more.
It was absolutely incredible. When they were at their peak, they played in a very, very old rustic arena called Sullivan Arena. It was a municipal venue for all intents and purposes. But when they packed that place out at about, I would say, 6,600 fans, and not just vocally loud, but they also brought cowbells as well too. It sounded like a mini NHL game. And you put people in that place in early June to mid-June, the weather is warming up outside, they get playoff fever. There really was, at that point in my career, no sound like it. I mean, I had been told about the mystique of Aces fans. I then experienced firsthand, even though I came there before as a part of the visiting crew, but now on the home side there, you really appreciated not just how knowledgeable they were, but also how passionate they were. And it's kind of a fine line you walk depending upon what market you visit here for hockey in a certain city. You have some fans who are going bonkers, they're banging on the glass or yelling for whatever. They're still understanding the nuances of this game. And that you can certainly appreciate. Others who have seen this game for a long time, they've seen a lot. They'll tend to sit on their hands maybe a little bit, and they kind of observe the game more like a coach. Anchorage, I found out, and I experienced it firsthand, the fans had just a wonderful blend of passion and knowledge, and they weren't afraid to be at their loudest. And not only that, but you walk along the street, you find someone who's an Aces fan and not just doesn't know the team, but also has watched your broadcast. It kind of made me blush thinking that, this is something fun. This is unique. I didn't sign up for this job for recognition, but to get the occasional handshake and say, "Hey, I listen to your broadcast. I love what I hear." I'm basically a words of affirmation guy, and things like that meant a lot to me when I was up there with my wife Amy.
So cool. So let's move on from Anchorage, from the frigidness of Anchorage to the beautiful blue skies and a little bit of rain here and there in Washington.
Yeah, so about in 2015, I was at a crossroads, and I got hired by the Everett Silvertips, and I'm very, very grateful for that move. And it's kind of in connection with when I left Alaska back in 2015, a few months prior to that. I was looking at, new options. I had just heard that the American Hockey League was, expanding west, and they're still there with great outfits like in Bakersfield, Ontario, San Diego. And now they've added Henderson, Coachella Valley, etc. And I took a good couple of runs at jobs out there. One matter of fact, I finished up as a finalist. And so it was kind of a leap of faith that my wife and I took, moving back to California for 3 months to see if I could take that next step with virtually no guarantees. It didn't work out, and time was getting short for me with what was next, because I think the hockey season was like maybe a month away. All of a sudden, out of the blue, I get a call from a good friend of mine who eventually moved on to the LA Kings as their insider guy, John Rosen. And John had been with the Everett Silvertips for 4 years as their radio guy, PR guy, everything. And he said, "Hey, I got this opportunity here for you." Guy named the previous radio guy had just left his job. It's open right now, but my old boss is looking to fill this thing ASAP. Would you consider moving to the greater Seattle area? And as soon as I heard that, I went, let's have a phone call right now. Ding, ding, ding. I grew up in Seattle until I was 7. My father, still alive, is class of 71 Federal Way High, about 15, 20 miles outside of Seattle. I've had generations of family going back in this area. I've had great memories after moving to LA, coming up to see my grandmother up here, spending summers with my family and everything. So to get that kind of an opportunity and then to learn more about the WHL, I wasn't as educated as I am now on the league. But when you discover what the building in Everett had to offer, 8,000 seat venue, designed in very similar fashion, by the way, to the minor league rinks that are now outfitting Ontario, Bakersfield as well. And to hear this place up here has routinely packed fans to the brim with sellouts. And the Silvertips, like many other teams around here in this league, have done such a great job of producing not just NHLers, but future superstars. You're talking about the best 16 to 20-year-old hockey players in the entire world. And to step into that job in Everett, where they also had a full-blown radio deal, it wasn't an AHL job, but it felt like an AHL job. And they gave me 6 incredible years to help me grow, help me learn even further. And eventually it led all to this right here. And it's all just, it really is about relationship building. But, you know, I think I say this to a lot of people. Sometimes a career, you can't put an exact finish line on when you're going to get to your dream. You've got to be patient and wait it out here. And there were a few doors that closed on me that I hope we're going to open. I thought they were going to open when I was in Everett. It didn't happen because the good Lord said, "Hey, you've got a few more years to go here. Keep doing your thing, ride it out. Don't be 1 foot out the door here, but commit to it. Eventually something's going to break through." And so, you know, I had a lot of great memories with the Everett Silvertips. And I even think of when I was there, about 2 wins away from a WHL championship. 2017-18, that team had Carter Hart, several NHLers to this present day who are playing in the league. And when we got back from winning the Western Conference Championship, we won it at about a place 3.5 hours away in Kennewick, Washington, home of the Tri-City Americans. Smaller building, but loud, packed, won it in overtime. One of the greatest wins I ever called, period. We get back in at 3 a.m. into our building, pull up into the gated driveway. There are, I'm not kidding, 200 fans waiting outside this gate, going crazy at 3 a.m. wearing Silvertips jerseys, ringing cowbells. I think a couple of air horns were heard as well too, which might have been a noise violation in Everett, Washington, that late an hour. But nobody cared. Nobody cared. And I think for these guys who got off the bus, it finally hit them of just, when you play and you commit yourself to a city, this is the reward that you get right back in return. I mean, the media attention that we had in that final was incredible. It told a great, great story across, you know, the region of Seattle. That's a year that I'll never forget. And eventually, you know, putting that kind of sweat equity into a few more years would eventually lead to this dream job right here.
Which I want to get to right now. So tell us how this developed, because when I heard about it, I was so ecstatic, man. I was so happy for you because I know you're the kind of guy who's worked his tail off. You're always in the right place at the right time. Just a few doors would open a little bit and then, kind of couldn't get in quick enough. But now the door widened and now you got this cool job. And we'll just tell everybody you're now working for the Seattle Kraken. This is the third season, right? Coming in or third, right? Third
Yeah,
season. Yeah,
season 3. Yeah, we are just underway with that right now. So I handle
yeah.
pregame and postgame as well. So I've taken a bit of a step away here from the play-by-play side of things, but the goal was always to get to the NHL in a broadcast type of capacity. I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into just one job. And I think when you get a chance to apply yourself in other areas, especially in the minor leagues with interviewing, reporting, storytelling, it really makes this job feel like a seamless transition. And I wouldn't have this job if not for a collection of people who called and went to bat for me, and as well to earn the trust of not just a colleague here but a good friend of mine in Everett Fitzhugh, who has done a fantastic job of calling play-by-play on the radio side here for this for the Kraken and our radio network as well. We went to dinner, and I remember Everett just before I got the job offer, he said, "Would you give up play-by-play totally here for this?" And I went, beyond the shadow of a doubt, absolutely. The game was always to find a role in broadcasting in the NHL. And there are different ways that you can make your mark in broadcasting and do it. So there's the obvious part of the job, which comes to doing pregame shows for the regular season, half hour; for the playoffs last year, full blown hour. And we had a lot of fun doing it. Pregame or intermission updates on top of that, and the post-game show where you can really spread your wings and have a lot of fun with this. We do the usual nuts and bolts for the first half hour. That's all carried by the radio network. So, a lot of recapping of the highlights, stats, numbers, tossing back to live interviews with the media, the out-of-town scoreboard. And then once that half hour is up, we then basically open the floor to everybody, listeners, people who text in here to the show. We've opened up a brand new voice memo segment where if you take your phone, we're an iHeart radio station as far as our flagship outlet. If you go to our radio station, 93.3 KJRFM, open that on the iHeart Radio app, you'll find like a red mic icon, and you can record a voice memo on there, just like you would on your normal voice memo app on your phone. But that will instantaneously upload tops 30 seconds of whatever you got to say to our producer, and they'll replay just like that. So we've now blown this open to taking phone calls. We've discovered that there is a thirst for the live caller, and I'll never forget the endless stream of callers that came in after the Kraken beat the Avalanche in Game 7. I was on the air for about an extra 2 hours, and my boss said, "Don't be constrained by time, go as long as you want." And that reaped a ton of rewards for us. But live callers, people who want to text into us or just record their thoughts, perfect it, send it in, and our producers got that. So there are different ways for listeners to get involved. That's where I have a lot of fun on this part of the broadcast, is getting a chance to read our feedback, hear feedback, react to feedback, and just have a conversation. That's a rewarding part of this position. And, for every hour, that we do this, I really get off the air feeling like that the plane has landed and landed smoothly here. And it's a real fun job of being the pilot here for this. So on top of that, a lot of podcasting duties. I've gotten kind of into the written word with blogging, takeaways, what have you. That's all on the radio flagship website. And then helping just grow our radio network as well. I mean, that's a rewarding part of this during the summer, is getting a chance to call new contacts and solicit their thoughts of joining our radio network here. And we've expanded that now to 20 stations who carry Kraken hockey across 5 states. 5: Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and Alaska. And to see that kind of thirst for this game grow with that kind of outreach, it is one of the most incredible feelings that you will get for this kind of job. It's awesome.
And you got a little competition there. How is it starting to heat up there in Vancouver? Is the Canucks and the Kraken going at cracking each other, if you will. I mean, yeah.
We're kind of getting there. It's still right. It's still kind of right now, and we're just trying to beat you on the ice. And I don't think we've gotten to a lot of the fighting words part of this rivalry yet. Here, I really don't think we're going to get to that part unless we see. I think maybe a red letter moment in this series. I don't know if you're talking about like a good old fashioned Donnybrook or whatever. And the closest thing that we ever saw was Tyler Myers got a high hit on Matty Beniers, the future face of the franchise, and knocked him out of the All-Star game. And that did not sit too well with not just head coach Dave Haxtell, but virtually any Kraken fan here in Seattle. But I heard a great phrase, a great quote. A rivalry is not worth its salt until the playoffs are involved. I can't wait for that first playoff series between the Kraken and the Vancouver Canucks. Geographically, as you would know, but I think that the potential for crossover with fans, with travel, and just the fact that we can get two teams locally who just don't like each other and won't like each other. That's where it really gets heated. That's where it gets salty, and that's where it gets real. We're hearing a lot about the Kraken and Vegas Golden Knights. They're two star-crossed franchises. We're never going to escape this whole game of comparison. And, we have the Winter Classic also coming up, which is going to take this whole thing to a brand new storyline here. But I guarantee you, Mike, that first playoff series with the Canucks will finally bust the doors down a potential for a great, great story for this entire region.
Absolutely. And maybe down the road, you might have another rival if the Portland expansion team comes in. You guys will be surrounded by Portland and Vancouver. That would be kind of wild in the future. Who knows if that happens or not? Great success for the Kraken. 2 years, and they're just had a great playoff run. I mean, what is it now with these new expansion teams? Is they're like ready to go? Because the old days it would take 5 to 10 years for even to make the playoffs. So this is kind of cool. So fans, we always tell the fans in the old days, "Oh, just be patient." We got young guys, you got a few veterans, but man, Vegas off the bat, Seattle off the bat, ready to rock and roll. This is kind of cool for the NHL.
Yeah, I think you can kind of thank the expansion draft for those possibilities now with,
Yes.
the Vegas cashed in nearly with what seemed like every pick. The game changed a little bit here for the Kraken. I think a lot of GMs kind of wizened up about the whole process and found ways to protect their key guys they didn't want to have taken. So it really left the Kraken with small options of what they could take as far as players who could step in and do this from the early going. I mean, there are still some players here who have been taken out of the expansion draft and made their mark. I can't think of some greater options here than, say, Vince Dunn, who led this team in offense last season, Jordan Eberle, who's been around the block so much in this league, Jared McCann, who had 40 goals as well last year. Yeah. And those were players who, you think about maybe 20 years ago, the Kraken would not have a sniff at, but that expansion draft opened the door to get them here and then eventually paved the way for young talent coming in that's going to make an impact here for years to come. I mean, it took virtually no time for Matty Beniers to do this at age 19. I recall what I was doing at age 19, and I guarantee you it was maybe 100 times less cool and 100 times more dumb, maybe, than what Matty Beniers was doing at age 19. But he's handled this whole thing with this NHL career at such a young age with flying colors. He's going to be a star in this league for years to come. He's already turning into the face of the franchise at this point, and I wonder in about a couple of years or so, you're going to see that captain's C put on the front of his jersey. So he's already here. First round draft pick Shane Wright could be here very, very soon. There are some great players who are already coming up in this system who are taking leaps and bounds, and they're getting to the end of their amateur careers or now getting into the AHL, and they're playing lights out to give a lot of promise for people who have played the waiting game and played it well, knowing that this team has just begun with one playoff run with making a big dent in the path to eventually hoisting a Stanley Cup. They have a great GM in Ron Francis. His name is already on the cup. He's played so many years, one of the all-time great playmakers and scorers in this league. He's serious about winning. He is serious about a strategy. He is serious about discipline with that strategy as well. And so we're already seeing those fruits pay off.
Yeah, Ron Francis, Hartford Whalers, Pittsburgh Penguins, a lot of great teams he played on. He unfortunately played with Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr, and he was playing with, I think, Brendan Shanahan with Hartford, and great player, good hockey mind indeed. Ron Francis, one of the great guys. Before we close up here, I do want to ask you a couple of quick things. Like you said, you use the magic word. You are the pilot. You're flying the plane, so to speak, setting the table for the game with your pregame stuff, your intermission, your postgame. So tell us, you know, well, I know, but not everybody knows that there's a lot of work to be put into that particular position. But what time do you start your day? Let's say the game's a 7 o'clock drop of the puck. What time do you start your day to get organized?
Yeah, so actually I would say it even carries over into the day before where, I think getting a chance to watch the team that we're facing the very next night really is a good educational process. And I would give that advice to anybody, do as much as you can to know the opposition and know what you're seeing, become familiar with your opponent and get it burned in your brain enough before puck drops. So that comes with watching teams the day before, knowing their tendencies. And then also what I try to do is additionally, I get ready here with a game day podcast that we put up. Technically, it goes live by midnight on the day of the game. So I'm usually knocking that out the day before, getting somebody from our broadcast team, a colleague of mine, and then touching base with somebody who covers the opposition, whether it might be the TV or radio broadcast team or somebody who writes for The Athletic or somebody else that's in connection. So that's actually part of the educational process for me to get ready for the pregame show the very next day. When I get into that next day, if the team is at home, there's morning skate at about 10:30 in the morning. It's a great chance to see who's on the ice and observe more tendencies. We have then time to interview the players at roughly 11 o'clock, 11:15, and then talk to the head coach at about 11:30, and we have our interviews. And typically, I'll go back later on that day and cut up each interview and pick 1 to 2 best things I heard and save that for the pregame show. And after that, you're talking about a half-hour pregame show. My first 2 segments mean the most as far as my workload. And what you try to do is research as much as you can. I try to jot down as much as I can because it's a network broadcast. And so you don't want to prompter everything, but you want to have, for me, at least the way I operate, the way I'm wired, is if I can see a continuous stream of thought on paper and follow that, that will help me sound as smooth as I can be to communicate the stories for that evening and then eventually toss to interviews as well. So there's a lot of writing involved on top of that. I would say I probably dedicate maybe a good 2 to 3 hours to get my whole show written. And that also accounts for intermissions, post game as well. And then just make sure our sponsors are all lined up for what I got to say. And then by the time that we're ready, say if it's a 7 o'clock game, if I go back home to prep, hopefully by about, 2:30, I'm done. I can go, work out or get a nap in. If traffic is bad around Seattle, and trust me, it gets pretty congested, just like LA or the Bay Area as well. I won't even go back home. I'll have my suit in my car and go right to our flagship studios. It's only about probably 3 blocks away from the arena and the Space Needle, and just camp out there for the whole day and, find a way to unwind, maybe, check some emails, talk to, my wife, my family, and then get to the arena by about 4:30 and get ready to rock and roll. So you're talking to a lot of people, saying hello to some of your friends and the opposing broadcast teams, just kind of catching up with your own as well. I say hi to our TV crew and try to keep our friendship kindled. And ever it fits you, Al Kaniski will hang out, get dinner, and all of a sudden, bam, it's showtime by about roughly 6:30. So, it seems like a long day, but I kind of compartmentalize it out into like probably I would say 5 sections, and going section by section, time actually flies, and all of a sudden you're done by about 10:30, time to go home. And so it's as I said, it can be a long day, but time certainly flies. And you know that you're doing a job that you love when you work hours that big, but it just seems like about probably like a 4-hour day maybe.
Yeah, it's a great personal reward. Before we close, I wanted to ask you what was the funniest, I guess, faux pas that ever happened to you, not verbally on the air, but just something that happened that you got caught like, uh-oh, like with your pants down or something like that, in a sense, what, like something happened mechanically, engineer wise, or just something bizarre. Just share it with us because I know doing it for so long as you have, because I know stuff that I've done, just things just happen you have no control over, but it's funny in a sense, as long as it didn't hurt anybody. But tell us what you got.
Well, if I can go to the ECHL days, we're going to be here all night talking about production gaffes because it will happen.
Mhm.
It's bound to happen, and you have to give yourself a deep breath and a stroke of patience to get through that. I think one thing that comes to mind was when I was in my second to last season with the Stockton Thunder back in 2011 and 12. We had a new team in our league since gone to the AHL, now the Colorado Eagles, and playing in a building that we haven't been to before. Our very first time, I was warned that we had a little bit of problems with the phone line. And yeah, we used a hard phone line to get our gear hooked up and back to our studio to get on the air. By about, I want to say 6:15 before a 6:30 pregame. No, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go back and correct that. For a 6:45 pregame, my pregames back then were only 15 minutes. Um, Trying to dial up, nothing. 6:30, dial up, can't get through. I'm literally jamming on the phone with, first off, people with Colorado to help me out, and then people at the radio station to say, patience, this might be a Mayday situation. And I basically had nothing until about, I would say, 7:05. The puck had already dropped. We finally got connection and finally got through. And so I basically tried to make as much of a light out of it as possible, find some humor. I just said, folks, we're here. Little stumble, little fumble. You miss nothing. On goes the game. Nothing tie.
There you go. Yeah.
I would say two more things I would say quantify as a big oopsie. And I'll actually go on the air and I'll actually say that there was one on air gaff. And this is where I say really give yourself as much grace and mercy because mistakes will happen. It wasn't just a run of the mill broadcast. It was the ECHL All-Star game
No, jeez.
back in 2008 and in our home building as well. I was so hyped up for this game. It was going to be on Sirius XM NHL Network Radio. The way we did it back then was 3 broadcasters got picked to do this game, and we all rotated. One person would do play-by-play, one would do color, the other would be rinkside, or even between the benches, if you will. And we all rotated positions first, second, third period. Matter of fact, it was a great broadcast, and I'll tell you why. The guy who did the first period is now on the NHL on TNT, Brendan Burke, good friend of mine. So Brendan was doing play-by-play, open the broadcast, as smooth as ever back then, too. I was with him in the booth for the third period. I called play-by-play. He was my color guy. But then there's so much offense, and just I think the old joke about this is that there's so much offense and no physicality. I found one of our players for Stockton didn't get picked to play the game, but was hanging out in like the club level. And I saw him afterward and I goes, "What'd you think of the game?" He was like, "Oh, that was fun. That was a Nolan Ryan or no hitter."
Yeah.
There's no physical play, no checking, nothing. It's all offense and nothing but offense. And I want to say the final score was something like 11-8. I had lost track. I had stopped writing down the goal scorers in my scorebook, because if you write something down, and this is when I was less efficient at my job, that if I kept writing, I would miss something, because all of a sudden the puck would drop and they would come right back down and get a grade A scoring chance. And so the scoreboard had already been turned off. So I had no reference point of the final score. And so I went through our thanks to our producers, network engineers, all that, read the final score. And I think I said something like, and the final score, the American Conference 11, the National Conference 6. Good night. And I thought, that was actually an 11-8 game. Oh, no. And over at Brendan and my other colleague, and I go, did I just say the final score was wrong? And I go, oh, no. How am I going to recover from this? I did. It was a humbling moment, and it was early in my career. I think early enough, one where, there's no radio archive that's replayed over and over publicly. I'm sure it's logged somewhere with Sirius XM, but they have better things to air than me. Secondly, man, you learn to give yourself some patience and some grace and mercy, because mistakes are going to happen. I think the less and less time that you dwell on it mentally, and as a cliche as it sounds, but like a hockey player, stew on it for 2 hours, go to bed, wake up, move on. Next morning, the better off you're going to be. The more it's going to your life, the better. And finally, the one lesson I learned, especially if you have food allergies, my last story, always check what the press room is serving and make sure it's labeled. When I was with the Everett Silvertips back in 2015-16, great spread, amongst the best in the entire league. There was nothing, though, labeled on those meals. And I scooped up some pasta, some Alfredo, looked unreal. I have seafood allergies. I sit down, begin to eat. Tasted pretty good. Chicken was sloppy a little bit, but I thought it was okay. I look across and my coworker goes, "So how you like it?" And I go, "Awesome. It's good." "Yeah, salmon Alfredo, eh?" And I go, "Me? It's chicken Alfredo." "No, it's salmon Alfredo." I basically calmly put my stuff down, grabbed my jacket, and sprinted right out the press room door, down the hallway, 2 hours before puck drop. I don't care if the Silvertips were in a team meeting. Barged right in the door, went to the trainer's room, and I said, "I just took some salmon Alfredo without even knowing it. I might be 5 minutes from anaphylactic shock." And our trainer then called in, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 EMTs. They were pumping me full of drugs, EpiPens, you name it. I've had this happen before with seafood. Usually it means I'm taking a trip to the hospital and I'm out of commission for the entire night. Forget about me doing my job here. Puck drop is about 90 minutes away now. I'm literally on the trainer's table right next to Noah Juleson, now playing for the Vancouver Canucks. And he's looking over at me like, "Man, you're way out of your office right now, tough guy." I was just recovering, but I was sweating. I had my shirt undone, and my boss is running in frantically, thinking like, "How are you going to make puck drop here? I got to find out plan B." It was going to be either him calling the game, because we had no other backup in the building, or my color guy, who is now the radio color analyst for the Seattle Kraken, Al Kaniski, calling this game play-by-play. Al has never called a game play-by-play wise in his life. I got up there back to the booth. I would say puck drop was at 7. I made it by 6:58. Just shirt untucked. I have no idea how. It must have been the extra EMTs, because whatever they pumped in full in me, in my veins, it might have been like land speed record stuff with getting me back to normal. I actually got on the air, called the game that night. It was a great game, by the way. But Al looked at me like, Man, I almost had an out-of-body experience too. Please don't scare me ever again like that. And I'm glad you're doing better as well. So always check what they're serving if you have allergies. But that was a close one, and I'm glad I survived it though.
That's a cool story. Reminds you of the movie Hitch, right? Yeah, Will Smith when he took the seafood and he had to run to the drugstore and his yeah. Wow, thank the EMTs, and it's good that you had at least a an over 2 hour window because we would have been like, half hour before the puck drops. Yeah, obviously you would have made the game, but I'm glad you made it at 6:58. That's pretty wild. That's a great story. Kind of went over time here a little bit. I really appreciate your time, but was going to ask you, what are your final thoughts to tell my students?
Friends, I think sitting back there, I can recall where I was about, man, I want to say 20 years ago to 25 years ago. I'm dating myself right now. The cell phone I had back then played the funny, little Nokia beep. You can find it on YouTube. Like, we had, nothing compared to what we have today here. But I remember sitting in the seat that you guys are sitting in right now, knowing what I wanted to do. And I will encourage you with this. Number one, pick something that's going to get you out of bed each morning and not groan, I've got to go to work today. Because if you find something that's the opposite, you find your passion, it will never feel like one day of work in your entire life. I would encourage you with that. Secondly, prep hard. Prep hard. If you want to get into broadcasting, prep hard. Study. Find what you want to say on the air. Write it down. Nothing will ever beat you if you are the hardest worker in the entire room. I had a great set of people, from mentors to my family who really helped, I think, instill what work ethic meant and what kind of fruits it would produce. So never take shortcuts. Find a way to work hard. The homework doesn't stop. It will continue when you get into your job, but you'll find that homework incredibly rewarding. And finally, patience. No one's timeline is the same. You could be in your dream job literally from this point 5 years from now. I hope it happens for you. The chance it may happen is slim. It took me 15 years to get to my dream job. For others, it may take 10. It all depends on timing. It depends on relationships. It depends on circumstance. Ultimately, if you are amongst the warmest people that someone's going to meet, if you're among the most authentic, keeping it real person that they're going to meet, and if you have energy, every person you meet is going to find you worth your weight in gold, and they're going to want to help you. So authenticity, warmth, and energy. Think of those three things as core life values for the people that you meet who could help you get a job and the job of your dreams down the road. And finally, when you get your dream job, pay it forward, please. Pay it forward. I had some great mentors in my life who took every phone call, every email. I'm pretty certain I bugged the spit out of them. They were never shaken by it. They found the time to give me their time of day. And I want to encourage you to reach out to me if you want any advice. Listen to your tape, a question that you may have about this business, the process, your homework, whatever, your prep. Reach out to me. I'm happy to help you because I hope that if you get this job of your dreams, and for some of you, this is what you want to do, when you get there, find a way to pay it forward. Thank you.
Great way to beautifully said. There we go. Great stuff. And by the way, these guys here are playing golf with your Dodger, but we only had to have 79 wins to play golf. You had 100.
Lower your expectations. We had 2020. We had 20. I was very happy about that, though.
Well, I always kid that was a little league season, 60 games. I mean, they play more in college and did in that season. So, but it was a playoff format. There was a lot of games. There's more games in the playoff format than there was for the regular season. So you got to give them that credit. Yeah.
They won the 100 meters sprint. Nobody else outraced them. And I'd rather have a COVID bubble title than a trash can banging title.
Oh, Don't tell Dusty Baker that. Well, he had nothing to do with the
Great person,
2017.
by the way. Great person.
Oh, it's funny that now the ALCS, you got both former Giant managers, Baker and Bochy. I'm going with Bochy. I'm going with my buddy Bochy on that one. So, and
I
yeah,
and
yeah,
they're
I'm thinking. I'm
you
sorry.
to push all the right buttons.
Yeah, I think Philadelphia will take care of Arizona, even though Arizona's been playing hot, obviously. But I think Philly is it's theirs for the taking. So it should be interesting. So anyway, my friend, I know you're busy. I know you got a game tomorrow. The Kraken. Who are the Kraken dropping the puck with tomorrow?
St. Louis Blues. So that's
Oh,
a fun one. So just for some added context here, a couple first games have been a bit bumpy, and the Kraken are 0-2 right now,
yeah,
but they get that first win. It's going to go a long way for a team that's still very talented. And by the way, just in time, because next Tuesday will be the home opener for the Kraken, and they're facing, guess who? The team that they beat in the first round of the playoffs last year in the Colorado Avalanche here. So it'll be good to get that first win possibly coming up one day from now.
Yeah, you've got a long season ahead of you. Some good stuff. Well, good luck, my friend. And I just want to say thank you so much for your time. And I'm very proud of you. You're a good example of a pro that you, like you said, use the word. You got to be patient. You just got to go up the ladder, and just your time will come, and your time came. And I'm really ecstatic for your the way your career has gone from the beginning, and it's continuing hopefully for another 25, 30, 40 more years. Keep it going. You look great. You sound great. And again, I appreciate your time. Spreading the word of what to expect when you get into this business. And thank you so much, Mike.
Oh, thank you. I really am honored. I admire you. I idolized you for a long time, Mike, and this was a treat for me for sure. Thank you very much. Anytime.
Oh, that's so nice of you to say. In fact, I'll send you $25. Well, now we're even. Appreciate those fine words. Okay, Mike, you take care, my friend. Best of the family as well, and be healthy and be safe. And again, thank you so much.
You too, pal. Thank you. Safe flight.